What is up, everyone? Happy Thursday evening, March 17th, 2022. I'm Chris Manning. That is Evan Dammarell. This is the Locked On Cavs podcast. We're here live on Thursday night, or maybe you're listening to us in your audio feeds or on Friday morning. We're going to talk Cavs 76ers from Wednesday. We're going to talk about the latest on Jarrett Allen. We're going to talk about a very important weekend ahead for the Cavs. If you have questions for us, drop them in the chat, and we'll sprinkle them in throughout the show, depending on how they fit the segment and whatnot. And if there's any really good ones that we don't get to, perhaps we will save them for a future mailbag. But we have a new intro. It's a little outdated. We're working on fixing it, but stay tuned. We're going to be right back. Let's get into it.
Cavs need a three. Sexton works on Irving, trying to get loose. He'll fire. Hey! Knocks it down! Ground. Here goes Okoro to the bucket, and oh my! Okoro throws it down. 10 seconds to go. Here comes Colin Sexton. Sexton chased by Hill. Off to Stevens. Oh my! 45 ticks to go. That shot is blocked by Nance.
Get that big stuff out of here.
Prince knocks down that Harden pass. Garland's there. Garland upstairs for Allen. Oh, look out!
There you go. That's called team ball right there.
Evan, are you happy that I'm back? You're muted, my guy. Wow, we're off. We're off and running.
Wouldn't it be a Locked On Cavs production of that? No, I'm thrilled you're back. I'm thrilled to have my buddy back in the saddle, being the primary host. No offense to friends of the pod, Bailey Burmaster or Mac Robinson, but having to carry that energy for 30 minutes, I do not envy you. I like sitting here and fucking around and doing minding my own beeswax. Also, I know our intro is a little outdated, but it is Thursday, so it's just a little bit of a throwback Thursday. That's all it is. But how are you feeling, buddy? First a BTS concert, then a bear attack. And you're looking chipper as ever.
Well, if I had, it's a lot of fun activities for me. If I had to have if you would have had to come up with a third bit for why, did you have one?
No, I was just gonna say your wife got sick of your shit and crushed your larynx. But the sponsors wouldn't like it very much.
Anyway, I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarell. If you're just joining us for the first time, we're the hosts of the Locked On Cavs podcast, your daily look at the Cleveland Cavaliers. Today's show, Cavs 76ers look back. We're going to look at the Jarrett Allen latest and his hand injury and where we stand on that. And we are going to look at a very important weekend for the Cavs ahead. And if you're a long-time listener, I'm back. Some things were weird. Things are no longer weird. I feel good. Thumbs up.
He's not wearing green, so if you see Chris in public, this is a preemptive guarantee to pinch him.
Yeah, I don't know. I picked this out yesterday. Had to leave the house today, and here we are. Anyway, Cavs 76ers. Here, I am of two minds about this. Okay, so number one, I sort of think it makes sense in the hierarchy of the East that they lose this game, right? Secondly, I think
I had to ponder that point, but yes, it does make sense.
Secondly, I think coming all the way back, it's hard not to look at that game as like a little bit of a missed opportunity because, maybe if Jarrett Allen's healthy, maybe if some things break their way. I'm not going to sit here and go on like a diatribe about the refs or anything like that. That's not really what I do, and nor do I think I have like.
Well, actually, can I make a counterpoint to that real quick?
Well, can I? Let me.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I haven't talked a couple of days. Let me talk.
He's been laying in his hospital bed in a full body cast, and then literally like a cartoon, just like his eyes shot out of it, like shattering glass. And he's his wife's like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "Give me to my microphone. I have to talk about Cavs Sixers."
There was a window there, right? Like there was a window to win that game at home as the Raptors are making a real push for the 6th seed, as things are tight in the East, as Brooklyn is coming. And you don't win the game. That's tricky. And I feel leaving that game just a little bit up and down on it. That's it.
Oh, okay. I just didn't know if you were done there, but
I mean, that's why I paused.
Yeah, it's up and down. I don't know if Brooklyn's necessarily coming because if they happen to be playing in New York or Toronto.
Yeah, well, here's the thing: if the Cavs fall to 7, Kyrie Irving can play in the state of Ohio, where that game would be held if they're the 8 seed. That is
That
notable. The Cavs will be
well,
underdogs in that game.
they would be underdogs. I think if they drew Charlotte, they'd have a better chance as the 7 seed to jump right back into it. And then I think they play Milwaukee in the best of 7 series, which is suboptimal, or Philadelphia, depending on how Philadelphia goes. And I agree to your point where the Cavs have this is their third time they played Philly. This is the third tough loss they've had against the Sixers. This isn't a blowout. They were more or less winning this game. I felt like it was winnable and attainable for the Cavs, which is odd considering they gave up 72 points in the first half. And that's kind of my argument here is people can complain about the officiating as much as they want, but the officials didn't give up 72 points to Philadelphia in the first half. And also, folks, the Cavs shot more free throws than the Sixers in that game, and Darius Garland had more free throw attempts than either of James Harden, Joel Embiid. Granted, James Harden really turned it on in the last few minutes of the game to kind of shoot up those numbers of his, but I don't think the grifting was as bad as people may have thought. Yes, there are some questionable fouls. I think with 13 seconds to go, that was just a questionable call in general. It should have been either been a jump ball or travel on a Harden and maybe not a foul, and I believe a Coro in that scenario. But I can't believe the game got blown on that call necessarily, which is just hard to believe. But it does make me wonder that the Cavs have kind of shown me a little something that they're missing Jarrett Allen, who I think is integral to what they're doing. And I think because of Joel Embiid's just overwhelming presence is why you saw Moses Brown play extended minutes for the Cavs last night. But I wonder if maybe you have Jarrett Allen and maybe you have the luxury of preparing for a best of 7 series against Philadelphia. Maybe the Cavs, I wouldn't say they're the betting favorite in that series. I would say Philadelphia is the clear favorite in that series, but I think the Cavs would have a puncher's chance in some of those games because they showed me a little something last night. Like, it was an interesting game down the stretch. I think it was just a lot of youth and inexperience and a couple boners on the Cavs' part because they gave up a few suboptimal threes. The Tyrese Maxey 3 kind of broke Cleveland's back, and I think that's what really blew the game open for Philadelphia in general. But this is there's something here. That's just kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I think the trickiest part is like you're still seeing them clearly figure stuff out, and they're just not fully healthy, right? Like I empathize with them on a human level in that sense because like I think it was like good that we saw Karis LeVert play at the end of this game. You know, I think one of the plays of the game was the read he made. Darius Garland gives him the ball. He makes a shot fake off the left hand. Off the left-hand wing, feeds to Okoro in the corner. Okoro gets off a 3. Like those are the kind of plays I think that will help LeVert kind of grease the wheels of the offense a little bit, right? You're also missing Jarrett Allen, and it's just like hard to beat a team where Joel Embiid is either the MVP or he's going to finish second in voting by all accounts, and like Larry Markkinen and it has to defend him at the nail
Or
or like
Moses
defend
Brown.
him in the post. Yeah, like you're just it's
He
Jarrett's
gets
gonna.
Joel Embiid and he gets Nikola Jokic in the span of like
Yeah,
3 days.
so like that's really hard. It puts you at a disadvantage, and like it's about NBA seasons are so much about overcoming those disadvantages and things, and navigating them as best you can. But like that, it's just a tricky thing to reality wise. And I think Evan, the other thing I want to just note, we got a question from our YouTube comments, right quick. 24 Rondo or Goodwin for the back end as a point guard. I kind of think like the last couple games of Brandon Goodwin, including the Sixers game where he's making shots, he's providing you some offensive juice, he's playing with pace. I kind of don't think it's a question for me that I think it should be Brandon Goodwin.
Well, if Karis LeVert's out there, I think it makes it a lot more palatable and easier for the Cavs to play Brandon Goodwin over Rajon Rondo because Goodwin does make reads and try to make correct passes at times. But like you said, if the shot's not falling for him, it's kind of harder to have him out there because he is a smaller guard who isn't very good on the defensive side of the ball. Like he tries, but he's not very good. But I've always been in the mentality that just Rondo, as you can see, physically just isn't reliable for the Cavs. And if you have a young guy who is just providing you not consistent, but pretty frequent scoring punches, why not roll the dice and go with it? Because I think, especially with having LeVert out there, because Mac Robinson kind of pointed this out a little bit last night when he was asking JB about it, that having LeVert out there is just kind of an added luxury because you have like consistent playmaking coming off the bench now too. Like him and Garland both led the Cavs with 7 assists each, but I think if you have LeVert out there, I think you play Goodwin over Rondo just because at least it provides some spacing because Goodwin has a bit of that 3-point threat to him.
Yeah, notable he doesn't have he is not on a he's still on a two-way contract, so if this he's theoretically not going to be eligible for the playoffs, which is kind of
Yeah,
interesting. Don't totally know what to make of that to some degree, but
it's odd.
it's a part of this discussion. I also want to say I think Levert, since he's come back, I think he's trying on defense. I don't think he's like good on defense, and I think you could still see Darius handling the ball a ton, and that was one of the things that you saw. I think down the stretch of this game was Darius really hammering the ball, and maybe needing at times to pass off to Levert just to work on that, and that chemistry has to come. But I think Levert is at least like trying on defense in a way that is kind of encouraging. All right, after the break though, we're going to talk about Jarrett Allen, who is not back yet, but according to a recent report from Chris Haynes, may come back soon. And I think, Evan, that this is sort of notable and we should talk about it. But you're going to tell everyone first about our friends at Athletic Greens.
That is right. We have a new sponsor. I'm wearing green. We're about to talk to Athletic Greens. Today's episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens, a product I use literally every day. Like, no lie, I use this every day. And shouts to their customer service team because I use it so much that I broke the O-ring on my cap. And I messaged them late one night saying, like, hey, it was just like a prompt. And I said, can I just get a new bottle? Can I order a new cap or something? And then they emailed me back almost instantaneously saying, like, what's your address? We'll just send you a new one. But I started taking Athletic Greens because I wanted to take control of my health. With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day off right. The special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all the right things. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, daily free, or gluten free, and it contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, all while still tasting good and supporting better sleep quality and recovery. It also supports mental clarity and alertness, and it's the only thing with the best things. Athletic Greens uses the best of the best products based on the latest science with constant product iterations and third-party testing. It costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. It's cheaper than getting all the different supplements yourself. You're investing in an all-in-one nutritional insurance entrusted by leading health experts such as Tim Ferriss and Michael Gervais. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NBA network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NBA network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
We're back. Chris Manning, Evan Dammarell, Locked On Cavs. Evan, Jarrett Allen, according to a recent report from Chris Haynes, is not going to have surgery. He is looking to return, and it's going to be kind of a game-by-game thing because he is still got a swollen finger. By all accounts, he has my understanding is he has like a big wrap on his hand, and it's still kind of an issue. This is not like magically healed. He is still hurt. But he's not going to have surgery, which opens the door for him to return. The question is, like, A, when can he return, and B, what level will he play at? I think it is worth thinking about in the context of the play-in tournament for starters, because let's remember the format here. We haven't really touched on this because I think we kind of assumed maybe the Cavs weren't going to be there. But remember, the 7th seed plays the 8th seed. The 9th seed plays the 10th seed. If the Cavs win in that 7-8 matchup, they're into the playoffs. Great. Okay, move on, no problem. And they're the 7th seed. If they lose, then they play the winner of the 9-10 game and then would need to win that game to be the 8th seed. They will need Jarrett Allen to have the best shot possible to navigate this. And if they want to have, I think like also just if you're trying to maximize what you get out of this season, right? I think for me, where I think the Cavs can really bank on this season is sort of what Memphis had last year. It's like you can get through this, you can have a season where maybe you only get into the first round, right? But you learn how to game plan. You go through the process of playoff basketball. You learn from that, and then you can take what you learned from this year, and you say, okay, we're going to apply this and try to have this catapult us next season to some degree. That is where I think you want to get to, and having Jarrett Allen around for that is frankly just a key part of that because he's a really big part of this basketball team in a literal sense and a figurative sense.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how things go. Like you mentioned at the top, the Raptors are on a hot streak right now. They are really just kind of crushing it on their West Coast road trip. I believe they're 5-0 at this point, which is pretty good for them, I'd say. And the Cavs just kind of are hitting the really hard part of their schedule. Like I said, they played Denver. Like Moses Brown had to handle Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic on a back-to-back. And granted, they played Detroit on Saturday, but that's not an easy team for Cleveland. They've struggled against the Pistons consistently this year, and it could be another struggle for Cleveland come Saturday night as well, especially when they're down Jarrett Allen. And it was encouraging to see from Chris Haynes that he is on his way back, hopefully before the start of the playoffs or the play-in. If they make it, I think the Cavs kind of control their own destiny in that point. But I do wonder maybe if they would like to have the added insurance and luxury of maybe preparing for one opponent and not having to stressfully like kind of cram Jarrett Allen back in. And like you said, if they lose, like right now, I believe Charlotte's the 7th seed, so they play Charlotte for the 7th seed they're the 8th seed. Cleveland would be the 7th seed, and then no, they'd be Charlotte's the 10th seed. It's all.
This is why I'm talking about Brooklyn before. So if the season ends today, and the Cavs, let's see the Cavs fall to 7, and like for whatever reason, the likely order for 7, 8, 9, 10 is going to be one of Cleveland or Toronto, or maybe Toronto, maybe because there's a 4.5 game gap between the Nets and the Cavs and the Raptors. I think Okay, here's let's reset this. Let's slow down. Cavs and Raptors are 6 and 7 in the East right now. They have the same record. They're 39 and 30. The Cavs are ahead because they own the tiebreaker over Toronto. Those two teams play one more time Toronto. That does not affect the tiebreaker. It does affect the standings. So the Cavs, that could have an impact. The Nets are now 8th. They are 3.5 games back of the 6 and 7 spots. The Hornets are 9th. They are 11 games back of the 1 seed. They are 4.5 back. The Hawks are a full 5 games back. So the likeliest outcome here is likely having to see the Nets in the first. If you're the 7th seed, you're probably getting Brooklyn.
If you're the 7th seed, you play the 10th seed, wouldn't you?
No. I ran through this already. 7th seed plays 8, and if the winner of that game advances. Have you not been paying attention?
That makes no sense. No, but that makes no sense. Why wouldn't the highest seed play the lowest seed, and then the winner of that becomes the 7th seed, and then the loser of this game plays the winner between the 2 lowest seeds, or the 7 and 8, or yes, 8. This is stupid.
This is a discussion for another day about tweaking the playing format. The Cavs just basically will get an opportunity to win this one game and then advance, or they get a second opportunity to beat one of these lower seeded teams and then advance. You want to, I think, get to a point where like you can just get by that. I think obviously you just want to be 6 and like avoid this. Like that's the best case scenario. Even if that means playing Philly in round 1, right? And then you can actually go through the process of doing a full series. Like I think you want to just be able. I think the most important thing here is even if you have to go through the play-in, you want to secure that 7-game series for the first round. You don't know how long that's going to go. You don't know how things are going to break, but I think going through that for a very young team is important. That's just really where I come down on this. And if Jarrett's healthy to play and he's good enough to go, then let's see him play. But I don't think we don't have like information on this that comes from like a primary source. It comes via a leak. It comes via an anonymous off the record source. There's a lot of validity in that, obviously, but like I would like to see some. I would be interested if it'll never happen, but like the transparent answer from like JB and the players about kind of where this is at, because that would tell me more.
Yeah, if you ask JB and somebody in the chat, I believe it was Right Quick 24 asked about Colin Sexton's recovery. If you ask about either of those players, JB's gonna be like, oh, they're progressing, and that's all he's gonna leave it at. Like he's not gonna really
I don't think Colin Sexton's playing this year.
I don't think he's playing. No, I've been told multiple times like even they don't want 60-70% of him. They want 100%. And then on Colin's side of things,
when he said that like a while ago that he might want to come back for the playoffs or whatever,
that was just him like speaking. That got shut down quick.
It got shut down quick by like pretty much every avenue possible.
Yeah, like most folks on the Cavs shut it down like from an agency side of things and the financial side of things. Like people might be excited about the idea of Colin Sexton coming back in the playoffs. I just don't think it's going to happen because I just don't think that makes any sense for him because he's not going to be 100%. Just like he could be 60-70% of himself, but then there comes the risk of injuring yourself and blah, blah, blah. But we're focusing on Jarrett Allen, and we're not going to get a clear answer on what his recovery window is. I would assume maybe if he came back before the playoffs to the plan, it'd be the last 3 to 5 games of the regular season, and I noted this on my tweet. It was a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek, but like the Cavs have 13 games left with Dean Wade and Rajon Rondo out Friday night against Denver. It is a little tricky to say, and it's going to be a little clunky to try and fit Allen back in. I mean, I don't think it's going to be hard to fit him back in the rotation. The on-court chemistry between him and Garland is seamless. I think there's a lot of familiarity between him and Mobley at this point, and Markkanen as well. It's just going to be tough to have to do that on the fly while you're possibly preparing for the play-in. And sorry, folks, I was wrong on that. I'm just not familiarized with it because the Cavs were dog shit this time last year. And this year they were the 6th seed for a while. And now I have to familiarize myself with the play-in tournament a little bit because the Cavs went from first to possibly not in the playoffs at all based on the play-in tournament, which I think is silly. But it's just going to be tough. It's going to be tight. Like Chris said, the game against Toronto is going to be huge. I think maybe having Allen back earlier for that would be huge for them as well. I think it'd be a huge shot in the arm for them, just like confidence-wise. But I don't know. We're kind of dancing around it, but yeah, I wonder what Cleveland does if maybe Toronto just keeps ascending like this, and then the Cavs kind of like have like this up and down bumpy schedule. Like I wonder if they maybe try to slide a little bit so they don't have to play Brooklyn in the play-in tournament. They avoid Brooklyn altogether, and they play Charlotte or Atlanta, and they play the loser of the Brooklyn game to make the playoffs as the 8th seed, and then they get the luxury to play Miami in the first round. Like that'd be a shitty way to end the season, but I think I'd rather watch the Cavs go out in a 7-game series than I would watch them get mollywopped by Kyrie, KD, and maybe even Ben Simmons if Ben Simmons' back is feeling right.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if they play Brooklyn at 7-8 and they lose, they get another chance to beat one of Charlotte or Atlanta. So, like, they will have 2 shots at getting out of that.
I
And
know,
then you
but
play Miami anyway. It's just like there's 13 games left in the season. Like, there's so much. Like, it's very hard to manipulate this stuff. And
it's exciting to see it go down the
doesn't-
wire like this, but
yeah. There's just also the other problem of like and this we're gonna answer Brad's question this way and then go into break. Karis LeVert like is trying to fit in because he's played like very few games with this team, and like you're trying to figure that out as you go and help you have him help you in basketball games right now. So like this is all just very tricky and complicated, and Jarrett Allen being hurt doesn't help it. Okay, one more break, and then we're gonna talk about the weekend ahead because it's very important. Big important stuff coming up for the Cavs. If you want to include Monday in that too, because they're playing a bad team on Monday, then wouldn't blame me either. But first, I'm going to tell you about our friends at BetOnline. Look, that time the Lakers stink. It's that time of year again as college basketball's tournament is finally upon us. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net is the #1 source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action going on. That's BetOnline, and that is where the game starts. All right, last segment, Locked On Cavs, for this episode. Evan.
Shouts to the St. Peter Peacocks, who are currently tied at now they're losing the Kentucky Wildcats. Go ahead. I love March Madness. This is like zero productivity time for Evan.
Big weekend ahead. Okay. Cavs Nuggets Friday.
The Zips play the UCLA Bruins tonight, and if they win, they play on Saturday. I don't know who they play next, but big weekend ahead, yes.
Okay. The Cavs play the Nuggets on Friday. The Cavs play the Detroit Pistons on Saturday. Need to go at least 1-1 there, I think, to kind of optimize your chances.
Well, ideally, you'd want to go 2-0.
I'm saying at minimum 1-1, probably go 2-0 if possible.
It's a tough weekend because, like I mentioned, the Cavs have struggled with the Pistons this year. And that's really tricky, especially when, like I said, they've been just kind of up and down. And you have Toronto, who's just quietly taking care of business on the West Coast right now. Like, the pressure is on for the Cavs. And if you were just like a casual like score, or like you look at teams' records, like, oh, the Pistons should be an easy win for Cleveland. It could not be. And if they go 2-0, they get 41 wins on the season, which is pretty cool. They're guaranteed not a losing record, but go ahead with your points. But it's just like Denver's going to be really hard. Denver's going to be so freaking hard. like Evan Mobley's gonna have to play the game of his career to like kind of contain Nikola Jokic, because we saw it with Isaac Okoro containing James Harden for the most part in that game against Philly. Like his defense ruled against Philly. James or Isaac Okoro's did. We're gonna need the same kind of production and just like gut check from Evan Mobley on Nikola Jokic to try and like slow down his impact in so many different ways, which is tough because Jokic impacts the game in so many different ways.
Yeah, and look, as you alluded to, Detroit is played the Cavs tough this year, but they've also played better overall as a team of late. The last 2 weeks, in terms of point differential, they, according to Clean of the Glass, they are 18th in in net rating over that time. The Cavs are 16th over that same stretch. Hold on. Pistons are 18th. The Cavs are 16th. The Cavs are like about 2 points better per 100 possessions, but that's not like a massive margin. The other like the Cavs are like have a good defense, over that time and things, but like it is not the cleanest thing in the world for Cleveland just to kind of, I think, well, defense actually been kind of like average, but like they have a tricky spot here in terms of navigating this in playing at a high level in terms of winning a game you need to, because the season is coming down to a wire, and like all of these games have weight, all of these games have stuff to them, and like look, they play again, like they have Denver Friday, and Denver's good. Denver's just straight up good. Jokic is incredible. You get Detroit on the back-to-back
Denver's
Saturday, and
really, really good despite missing two key pieces in Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. as well.
Nikola Jokic is that good. Um, Detroit is off Friday because they're playing. They're the only game on Thursday. They're playing Orlando right now as we're recording this.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone.
Yes, and then Monday you get the Lakers, who are bad. So like you have games against two bad teams, but you have to like this. These 3 days are going to be really, really massive, because then
The
you get
Cavs
into
need to go back to
regular
their old
Sunday.
ways of taking care of business against bad teams. Like that's something they consistently did at the beginning of the year. They need to
So, but
get back
this
to
leads
those old ways a little bit.
well, this leads me to my final question. How much do you split the Cavs maybe struggles of late? Again, the defense is like about league average, and it's been like one of the best units in the league throughout most of the season. They've lost 3 of 4. They had a 3-game losing streak pretty recently before winning 2 in a row against Toronto and Indiana. But they've lost to Miami, lost to Chicago, beat the Clippers in overtime, lost to the 76ers. Now, their next 5 games: Denver, Detroit, Lakers, at Toronto, home versus the Bulls, 4 or 5 at home. I think some winnable games there. None of those teams should totally outclass the Cavs, right? But when you consider the struggles of late, how much do you say this is fatigue of the season and the grind of the season and a young team going through it? How much of it is injuries?
It's a little bit of column A, column B. I think it's more column A than it is B, just because you and I had our fears that this wouldn't be tenable just long term for the Cavs. I think we saw them sputter a little bit towards the All-Star break and then coming out of the All-Star break. But like injuries have played their part too. I think not having Garland, Rondo, and LeVert to start post All-Star break life for the Cavs really hurt them quite a bit. We saw a lot of Brandon Goodwin, which was good, but like a lot of good from Brandon Goodwin, I should clarify. But like then that was great. But at the same time, you much rather have your All-Star, your veteran backup, and also the key acquisition piece you made at the deadline just in order to kind of bolster this team and prevent this from happening. And then Allen breaking his finger just kind of like it could be the straw that broke the camel's back. And Bailey Burmaster was talking to me about this. Just how many times can the Cavs weather this storm before they just kind of give out? And they have to ask guys to step up and play more than what's expected of them and burn their fuses even shorter too. Like it's tricky. It's a fine line the Cavs have to walk. I think it's just a mixture of both because the Cavs have been injured or have had COVID issues for the better part of this season. And it's just a little bit of both. And I think it's finally just starting to catch up to them.
Yeah, Jarrett Allen's a foundational piece. You don't have him. I think these guys have played heavy minutes. You've had guys go in and out. And I think Kevin Love, maybe hasn't been quite as effective game to game. Evan, I want to end this. If there's a saving grace the rest of the season, this is what I would say. If we want to end kind of on a note for opportunity here, Denver's tricky. Back to backs are always tricky, all that stuff. But here's some of the teams the Cavs played down the stretch here. To just look at this big picture coming out of this very difficult stretch. Detroit on Saturday, the Lakers on Monday. You get the Magic at home on March 28th. You play at the Knicks on April 2nd. You play at Orlando April 5th, and you play, assuming nothing changes, you play in Brooklyn where Kyrie Irving still cannot play because he has not received the COVID-19 vaccine on April 8th. The Nets will still be competitive, all that stuff. But you have winnable games, and you get to the end of the season, it's the Milwaukee Bucks. And yes, the Bucks on paper, much better team than the Cavs. Heavy Giannis, who's been incredible of late, inserting himself in my mind, into the MVP conversation. That might be a team that's resting guys in the last game of the season because they have Lucy being sewed up. That could be advantageous for the Cavs, right? So there's an opportunity here. It is about do they have? I think it's right. I think it's more column A. It is more fatigue at this point, and then just everything on the edges being kind of chipped away. And if they can get to the finish, that in itself would be sort of an accomplishment. And then we can assess how this group will need reinforcements for next season. And I think when we get
we'll break it down.
We'll
have a lot to break down, especially after the playoffs. Like, we'll have a clear idea of okay, these are obvious areas of improvement the Cavs need to kind of address this offseason, whether it's through trades, free agency. Like, we'll focus on that once the season's over and dead. But for now, like you said, I think Milwaukee might be advantageous. Brooklyn's going to be tough, even though Kyrie Irving can't play.
Kevin Durant, pretty good.
Kevin Durant's really good. Spencer Dinwiddie's just a little bit better.
Wow.
That's a joke, folks. Everyone knows I'm just Josh and I'm a secret KD stan. But it's just interesting to think what the Cavs have to go through next, what they're kind of working on at this point just to get to where they need to be. We'll focus on that in the offseason. But for now, I just think getting healthy is paramount for this Cavs team. Their injury report's getting smaller and smaller. Granted, it's Dean Wade, who's a very fringe rotation piece, but we're getting Rondo and Allen back will be key for this team, because I know we talked about how Goodwin should play over Rondo, but I think having that added insurance and depth just helps a lot. But getting Allen's the big thing here. And if Chris Haynes' report is accurate, and Chris Haynes doesn't really just say stuff without saying it, so I feel like it has some authenticity to it. He'll be back before the regular season is over. Hopefully that kind of helps the Cavs gel a little bit, but hopefully they have a little bit left and then they'll just ride out this storm. And we can kind of watch them not have to deal with the trickiness of the play-in tournament, because JB Bickerstaff said them making the play-in or them not making folks, I feel like they're going to be in some type of playoff scenario. Like, they have such a gap between them and Atlanta right now. I don't see the Cavs sliding all the way back into the lottery.
Reminder, if they do, Evan, two losers. There's two reasons they lose. I want to end on this. Two reasons they lose if they somehow fell out, like if they lose in the play-in tournament or whatever. Number one, I really, 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 really think the most important thing for this team this year is getting a 7-game series. Even if they don't go all 7 games, I think that would be that is such a massive opportunity for them to grow.
It's such an experience booster for these young players.
It's a cliche, but everything levels up. It gets more intense. The game planning is more specific. There's so much you go through in that series that they need to go through. Secondly, we would have to do draft prep, because if they somehow follow the playoffs,
I've done 0 draft preps since
brother,
they traded.
I'm gonna do I am banking on second round.
There's some second round guys I've been they're kind of interesting. I've been ear noting, or guys I know that they've been scouting from certain teams, scouts. Folks, we Chris and I have friends within the network of certain Cavs scouts appearing at college games, and then you put 2 and 2 together of who they're watching for. But
it's also
the Cavs have the 38th pick. Who they gonna take with that? And the 57th pick.
We can just talk about some names and skill sets and have fun with it, and then we'd have to do first round grading and that.
How deflating would it be for you covering this season to watch Cleveland flame out in the play-in tournament, not make the playoffs, and become a lottery team by proxy?
It wouldn't be deflating for me. What it would be sort of I would want to just understand where we went wrong and how you get there, and I think try to unpack that would be interesting. It's just, I think it'd be the other option is more interesting. I don't root for I root for outcomes and stories that are interesting.
No, I understand that and appreciate that, but I'm just saying they're sitting right at 17. They're a couple games within tumbling to 13, 14, and then just
East is good.
And then the East is good, man. It's like watching the AFC West just going through a nuclear arms race, trading for Devontae Adams.
Yeah. All All right. So on that note, if you want a great second listen today, I'm going to suggest you go check out Locked On Today with Peter Bukowski. He will surely be covering the Devontae Adams. If he also hosts Locked On Packers, I'm sure he'll have a great insight on the Devontae Adams trade and that on Locked On Today. So go check that out wherever you get some podcasts. I am Chris. That's Evan. Everyone be well, stay hydrated. We'll be back late Friday, early Saturday with an episode with Sean Woodley from Locked On Raptors. I'm going to talk to him about this race for the 6th seed that we've talked about and the Rookie of the Year vote and race between Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes, Kate Cunningham, and whoever else we're going to throw in that conversation. But until then, I'm Chris. That's Evan. Be well. Stay hydrated. Use a straw, but a reusable one at that. Be well.